we looking at a CW, or is it possible that we're looking at a Great Awakening?
But I'm trying to go a little bit. Did you watch the movie Leave America Alone or Leave America Behind? The movie with Barack Obama that he was the. Have you seen that movie or no?
No, I haven't seen that.
Why are you smiling?
I wouldn't say Barack
Leave
Obama.
the world behind.
I wouldn't. Barack Obama would not be on my top 10 filmmaker
This
list.
baby is sitting there saying that ship's getting closer and closer and closer and closer until eventually it just comes through. Planes start crashing. Teslas are all driving into each other. I mean, it's a pretty epic movie if you've not seen this. And he is the executive producer with Julia Roberts and a couple other people. Then a movie is being launched right after that called Civil War. We were talking earlier off camera, and my question is the following. If, let's just say, election date.
Take a second and just say that obviously that clip was roughly about 1:21. It was obviously a little bit longer than you would expect my opening clips to be, especially if we're responding or reacting to another video. But Eric Prince, who works for Blackwater, or he used to work for Blackwater, he's also a former CIA guy. He's been making the rounds for a while now, and recently he was just on the Patrick Bet-David podcast, and once again that topic of CW popped up. Now, the movie that Patrick Bet-David was referencing at the very beginning was the film Leave the World Behind. Now, this movie was released on Netflix a few months ago, and a lot of people really, let's just say the way they responded to the end of the film, which I would play for you guys and actually give some commentary to. The problem is that the last time I actually mentioned said video, I got a copyright claim, and then to go on top of this, I tried to do it a second, a third, and a fourth time, and each time I moved the clips around or put something in the background or even tried to muddy the clip up, somehow or another I got a copyright claim, meaning that YouTube would not monetize it. In some cases, they even blocked it. Kind of odd, especially for a guy who has a channel on the side where he's going to be making movie reviews, especially military film reviews here in the near future. But still, at the same time, it's obviously something you got to work on as a content creator. But back to the topic at hand. And then, of course, you got A24. They wanted to release a film on Civil War itself, something that, quite frankly, is completely unrealistic. Now, I'll be exploring both of those films at a later date to kind of help you guys out with the possibility of things that could happen or how unrealistic it is. But the thing is this right here. Many people are looking at this situation and they're asking themselves the question, could it ever happen in the United States? Not really. And I'll go ahead and tell you why. Even though it definitely looks like this nation is in fact divided because, as Prince is about to explain, we can't agree on something as simple as gender.
You can't talk. Where are we united at in America? Like if you were to say the left, right, center, everybody, what topics are we united on that you see? Is there anything we're united on?
A country is a country when its people have some commonly held beliefs. And if we can't even agree on what is male and female anymore, we have a problem, right? The Democrats' last candidate for the Supreme Court could not define, supposedly some Harvard-trained lawyer, couldn't define what a woman is. So that's a problem.
I don't think it's actually possible. I spent a lot of time on this channel going after Bill Maher, going after the very dumb things that he says, or the fact that he did not go hard enough on somebody, or the fact that he left something out. And sometimes I've even praised Bill. But there's one thing that Bill Maher did say that was actually 100% true that I 100% agree with. If there was ever a CW in this country, the Mason-Dixon line would in fact be in Grandmama's kitchen. The country is too divided within itself. I'm showing you guys the congressional map, which of course is going to come up in the very next clip. Now, the thing that you've got to understand about the United States is that the vast majority of people who are on the left, they live in the much, much larger coastal cities of the United States. New York City, Boston, LA, San Francisco. And some of these cities you have to actually take a bridge to get to. Now, this does include other cities like, say, Chicago, where it's right there on the Great Lakes, but you don't need to take bridges to get into. You can get to Manhattan through the Bronx if you want to drive through there, okay? Obviously, Philadelphia is right by the river, but not exactly on the ocean itself. And also Baltimore, you can just take 95 going up from, say, where I live at, my home state, and you'll end up getting there. Not every single city in the United States, big city, is got to take bridges to get to. But still, at the same time, though, some of the largest voting centers that vote Democrat, or at least are on the left, they are, in fact, in the much, much larger cities of the country. So I've been saying for a very long time, at least on this channel, that if something was to occur, it would actually happen in the cities. Now, before we go deep into this, there's definitely a few factors that would make people think twice about something like what I'm talking about now. Let me go ahead and roll this for you guys so that way you guys can kind of at least see where it is we're going with this.
Do you think the concept of civil war is capable of happening in the States anytime soon, or not in America? Not the way the founders created it.
I've read a lot of American Civil War history and the feel and the vibe in the country, and yeah, some of that feels like it would today. But here's the thing: a civil war would not necessarily be. It's really going to be rural versus urban. That's the difference. It's not a regional. It's not a north versus south. It's rural. It's rural versus urban is where this divide is, which is a very different equation.
Tell me more.
Trump won in 2016. Trump won like 3,100 counties. Hillary Clinton won like 80.
Yet the ones that she did win
are big urban,
top 20 metropolitan blue cities.
Yes. So if that becomes a civil war, it becomes a very unpopular place to be. Not because those places don't have enough food, don't have enough water. That becomes very, very bad for them.
The cities would be a nightmare in case something was to happen. As a matter of fact, the cities would actually be, like I've said, where it would actually start. So if anything, you would have something more akin to a civil disturbance. Let me break it down for you like this right here. One of my favorite all-time comic book series, I didn't say comic book characters, but comic book series, even though my favorite comic book character is definitely the character featured of this series, is the comic book series Batman No Man's Land. It's a very, very long series. I think it's the longest series in the whole Batman universe. My favorite actual comic itself, like pure comic, is The Dark Knight Returns. So maybe if you've read The Dark Knight Returns, and of course maybe if you've actually gotten through No Man's Land, then you probably know that I have a thing for dystopian societies. Basically what happened in that comic, not to go too much into detail, and if you're a comic book buff, please tell me exactly where it is that I'm wrong in. I'm not providing that many correlating things to this, but there is one thing that quite frankly does stick out. In the comic, Gotham City gets nailed with an earthquake, and of course, Bruce Wayne is in Washington, D.C., lobbying for money, lobbying for help to save Gotham. Well, while Bruce Wayne is gone, the city, the ruins of the city, or the city eventually gets destroyed, even though I just said the ruins of the city, and eventually the criminals take over. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to New York City and Chicago recently. The crime is completely out of control, especially on the subways, and of course the migrant crisis, which of course will come up over the course of this video. But it looks like a situation that almost looks a lot like Batman's No Man's Land. Now, I'm not going to be bringing up Bible prophecy or anything in this video, even though I may explore that at a later date, even though I am a bit of a prophecy buff, but I'm not here to preach to you. I'm just simply here to give you guys a bit of an interpretation of what it is that it looks like. And of course, you guys can feel free to say whatever or think whatever. Hit the like button, hit the dislike button if you want to. And of course, if you want to talk about this, we can have a conversation in the comment section. But if you actually take a good look at the cities, it's starting to look a lot like maybe we're creating a bunch of no man's lands, a lot like the comic. Now, I want you to think about something really quick. If the cities were ever to be cut off, these people can't grow their own food, not in these cities. Maybe you can have a little garden or whatnot, but of course, you're going to get ransacked every day by criminals. Basically, the convicts would be all over the place. And of course, with this migrant crisis, the situation would be 10 times worse. Well, imagine for a second what the federal government does if the situation becomes too unattainable. Just imagine. They send the National Guard in like they're doing right now for subway situation, even though New York's National Guard is not that large in overall size. Don't worry, we'll talk about red and blue states, of course, over the course of this video here in a second, because I'm definitely going to be coming back to that map that I mentioned. But it would be an absolute nightmare scenario if you live inside one of these coastal cities and the crap, quite frankly, was to hit the fan. Many people believe that the 2024 election is the end-all, be-all. I'm pretty sure if you guys are subscribed to my channel, you already know where I lean at politically. I don't think I need to tell you, but of course you guys can feel free to look at the catalog of my videos and you'll see exactly where I'm at. But either way, though, regardless of who wins, regardless of what happens, it looks like it's very, very possible that this scenario is a very, very big-time real possibility. The migrant crisis in New York, for example, I've talked about this in previous videos. You're bringing in a lot of migrants. Of course, the border needs to be closed. I know that kind of gave me away politically, but even a lot of sane, rational people are agreeing with me, especially given the fact that Monmouth University just did a poll saying that like 58% of Americans want a border wall now, which of course they had an opportunity at that, but of course they just didn't want that. They're kind of getting what it is that they voted for. Yes, you know my politics already, even though I just mentioned it kind of gave it away. But still, at the same time, though, the thing is this right here. The more and more migrants that you're bringing in, the less and less benefits are going to those who already live in the cities. A lot of these people, by the way, are minority communities that don't work more than 30 hours a week, and especially given the fact that the federal government, and I say the federal government, not so much the liberal media, because the liberal media looks like a arm of the federal government, almost like state media right now. They keep telling us that the economy is great, even though the price of gas is through the roof, the price of eggs is through the roof, the price of food is through the roof. They keep telling us that so many jobs were created under this current administration, even though the country's economy was already beginning to recover in the fall of 2020. And of course, a lot of these blue states where cities like, say, New York and Chicago are at, or LA or San Francisco, they were starting to open up, ending their lockdowns. And because they're much, much more heavily populated, people were going back to work. So we just don't want to factor that into the equation. But if you actually look at the job breakdown, most of those jobs came back. Roughly 2/3 of the actual total comes from there. And of course, the other jobs, you can actually see people are working less than 30 hours a week. In some cases, people are getting a second and a third job, depending on what kind of work that they're doing. I'll leave the CBO figures and the jobs reports in the description box for you guys to see. The fact of the matter is, a lot of people right now are broke. A lot of people are not being fed the way they once were. And of course, here in the United States, if you think that you're not being fed the way you think you should be, you're obviously quite spoiled, because there are other people in other countries like, say, India and areas of Africa, Pakistan, Middle East. They're not getting half. Actually, I take it back. They're not getting a tenth of what you get here in the United States. I mean, you got people out here complaining, saying this right here is slavery. Meanwhile, they're doing it in an area that has air conditioning. A lot of those places I just mentioned don't even have that. So stop complaining. Back to the migrant crisis. So the thing is this right here. The more and more migrants you bring in, the more and more jealousy is created, especially given the fact that a lot of these poor communities I was talking about rely on the government benefits that come in, while at the exact same time we're trying to work a job where they're not getting the hours they need. Well, when Venezuelans are getting roughly $7,000 a month and they're getting work visas, and then after a while you find out that these Venezuelans are attached to actual gangs, we've discussed that in previous videos, they start attacking cops and stuff. After a while, jealousy does in fact begin to manifest in these communities, and then after a while things happen. I've talked about this in other videos before. It's really the downside of identity politics. Think about it this way here. Let's use a certain community. Let's say we use the rainbow community, for example. You got an L, you got a T, you got a Q, you got a whatever, okay? The Democratic Party, and remember, the Republican Party, they sort of go more towards ideology. Donald Trump's the first person I can think of off the top of my head that actually didn't need to do that. But Republican Party, they run more to ideology every primary session. The more conservative guy gets the eventual nomination. Democratic Party, on the other hand, they play more the pandering game. Basically, what they do is they play the identity politics game. They used to not do this, but when Barack Obama came around, he leaned extremely heavily into an actual base of support. The problem with identity politics is that after a while, these communities begin to get upset with one another. For example, the L's, they don't like the T's. The T's, they damn sure don't like the G's. The G's damn sure don't like the B's. And of course, you've also got people who are actually B, as in black, don't like the brown, and the brown don't like the black, and then the black don't like the yellow, and then the yellow don't like the orange. Basically, what it is the rainbow coalition eventually starts fighting amongst themselves. That's basically what the hell ends up happening. Well, where are most of these people located at? Demographically, it's kind of a split. Most of these people are located, roughly 52%, and if you want to include every single racial group in the country, they're mostly located in the largest cities of the United States, meaning that, guess what? This is kind of what Mr. Prince was saying. Democrats lean heavily on winning blue areas and blue cities, big blue cities. That's where about 66 to 70% of their vote is. And of course, this also includes suburban areas too. But of course, the demographics are changing. But we'll talk more about this towards the end of the video. We're almost there. But here's the thing about said blue versus red as far as states is concerned. I don't need to go through what I mentioned in yesterday's video about how it was that Jen Psaki and Joy Reid are all pissed off that immigration is now the #1 voting issue in the state of Virginia. I don't need to go through all that. I don't need to go through the whole notion that it feels like they're trying to create a slave class out of whites, when in reality, the more and more migrants they bring in, it's not the W's that are being replaced. It's actually the B's that are being replaced. And I can prove that right there by just simply bringing up the B's is abortion rate, the B's is crime rate, the B's is murder rate, the B's is disease rate, or the B's is STD rate. It seems to me like it isn't the W's that are being replaced. It seems to me like it's the B's that are being replaced. And of course, I'm saying that to be friendlier to YouTube's terms of services. Of course, I could remake this video on Rumble and really get down to and really get into it. But still, the thing is this right here. The blue areas versus the red areas, obviously there is a massive disconnect. It is, in fact, rural versus urban. And as a result of this, there's been a bit of an awakening, which we'll get to in a second. But of course, that still comes with a price. And don't worry, we'll cover it here soon. But about this blue-red situation, about this B and R situation, well, here's the thing. You see, a lot of commentators will come out and they'll say that the blue states and the blue areas pay more in taxes. Okay. But it's the red areas that have the producer apparatus, meaning that they produce all the food. I mean, hence why it was that this statement on MSNBC the other day was absolutely stupid.
Baltimore County, Tom Schaller, and journalist and opinion writer Paul Waldman. Their new book, out tomorrow, is entitled White Rural Rage, the Threat to American Democracy. And Tom, we'll start with you. Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy at this point? You would think, as we pointed out, looking at Joe Biden's background and Donald Trump's, that the opposite would be true.
I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this, so we provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
So you mentioned a lot of negative factors about this demographic.
Let's just go ahead and attack those who produce all the food. I mean, that was absolutely stupid. And trust me, there are farmers that are Hispanic and there are farmers that are white. I think that maybe the term Hispanic, maybe we should start doing it by nationality. Your family is from Mexico, so you're a Mexican American, or you're an American of Mexican descent. Or your family came from Puerto Rico. You are an American of Puerto Rican descent. You are an American of Dominican descent. You are an American of Cuban descent. You are an American who just happens to have black skin colors. By the way, I'm from the South. I'm around people of color all the time. And quite frankly, it's just best to just go ahead and say what it is. Black Americans. They prefer to be called black. Just call them black. That's the real truth. All right. It's the way that it is. I mean, when you're in the military, after a while, you eventually learn to deal with people. I did my time in, so therefore, obviously, you work with people of color. Not to mention, I grew up with people of color. So therefore, just say what it is. This person is black. Simple. Very, very easy. Much, much more appreciable. But the thing is this right here. These blue states, these blue areas, the people who live there, and not everybody is like this. I'm not saying everybody is, but definitely the liberal elites are like exactly what I'm about to say. You don't realize that the red states are your protection. You don't realize that the red states are the ones that give you your food. And also at the same time, the red states can cut you off. So what Mr. Prince is saying is 100% true. All right? Yes, you're paying more in overall tax revenue, but you're paying us for a service. Then what happens when we simply just decide to say, hey, look, you know what, man? Just cut the freaking lights out. We don't need to give these people what it is they ask for. They keep being disrespectful as hell. They keep being crappy as hell. Just cut the freaking lights out. By the way, we can do that with our vote. I mean, as you're about to see right here in a second, it's starting to look exactly like what it is I just said. Now, I'm not the biggest Shapiro fan in the world, but I do think that Shapiro did do a good job of breaking down this recent set of polling.
It is just awful for Joe Biden. This poll shows that Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden 48-43. But it's not really just the result of the poll, the top line result of the poll, that's a problem for Joe Biden. It is all the crosstabs. The crosstabs are a disaster for Joe Biden. Crosstabs are the demographic breakdowns by group for the candidates. So under this rubric, the New York Times Siena poll rubric, by race, Donald Trump in this poll wins Hispanics outright, 46-40. Let's just be clear about this. Donald Trump, the guy who once tweeted out that he loves Mexicans because tacos, is beating Joe Biden 46-40 in this poll. The guy who the entire media suggested would never be president because he said that Mexican rapists were crossing. That guy is winning Hispanics 46-40, which again demonstrates Hispanic, not a great catch-all category, not a great catch-all term. It actually encompasses a wide variety of people from a wide variety of backgrounds and countries. He is winning them outright, 46-40. But that's not the only shocking crosstab in this poll. The problem for Joe Biden is that he governed as a radical Bernie Sanders type. He got into office and he decided he was going to govern far to the left. Instead of entering with the coalition that brought him and then dancing with them, he decided to jettison the entire center of the political spectrum. And Donald Trump is gradually taking over the center of the political spectrum, as we discussed last week on the show.
Only one way that happens. That means that a lot of Biden voters must be switching their vote. You see, guys, back in 2020, a lot of Biden voters were voting against COVID. A lot of them were brand new voters. They were just simply voting against COVID. They thought they were voting against evil orange man. I say that affectionately, by the way, but they thought they were doing that. But in reality, they were just simply voting against lockdowns and COVID. Well, now they see they got no money. They see their money doesn't go anywhere. They see the fact that the world is burning down. They see that we have a conflict in Israel between Israel and Palestinians in Gaza. They see that the Ukrainian war is not exactly going the way we want it to be. They're on the clip for I don't know how much money the taxpayer is. They see China about to invade Taiwan. And, of course, they see Venezuela invading Guyana. And they're probably thinking to themselves, what other fresh hell awaits us? Well, there's more.
Crosstab in this poll. Among black voters, Joe Biden is winning just 66% versus 23% for Donald Trump. 66% is the number to note there. 23% is it. If any Republican wins 23% of the black vote in a presidential race, that Republican will be president of the United States. But 66% for Joe Biden is a full-scale disaster area. You win 2/3 of the black vote and you're a Democrat, you are toast in a presidential race. Now, again, these crosstabs, you have to take them with a certain grain of salt. They have huge margins of error, up to 10 points margins of error for some of these crosstabs because, again, when you do a poll, the accuracy of the poll depends.
Minority voters switching over to the Republican Party. So maybe what Mr. Prince says here is exactly a great awakening. So it looks more to me like a lot of people are waking up and they're starting to see through the BS. Speaking of that BS, and guys, I did tell you a few videos ago that a lot of these clips would in fact be coming back because obviously I was going to be using them to help assert the points. You see, the mainstream media, when they talk about the orange guy, they've been lying the whole time. They told us that, well, they didn't really tell me, but I already knew they were full of crap because I've been talking about it for a very long time on this channel. They said that when the state of Colorado removed Donald Trump from the ballot, it would set precedent. It would mean that other states could remove the ballot. Now, I'm not going to get into how screwed up this is. But we've been saying for a while that the 14th Amendment, that's actually something that's got to be done by way of Congress, meaning that Congress is the one that's got to make the decision, not the court. They told their viewers on MSDNC, they told their viewers on the Constipated News Network, they told their viewers on CBS, they told their viewers at ABC and regularly NBC, they told them point blank that the evil orange man would not be able to run for president. And of course, leave it to a Fox News commentator to point
body
this
blow
out.
to Joe Biden's re-election campaign, which was already having trouble breathing. In a unanimous decision, 9-0, the Supreme Court ruled today that states cannot strip Donald Trump off the ballot. Donald Trump will remain on the ballot in Colorado, Illinois, and Maine, and in every state.
Decision by the Colorado Supreme Court was masterful. It was brilliant. And it is an unassailable interpretation of the 14th Amendment.
The Constitution says what it says. The Colorado Supreme Court decided that the Constitution still matters and it applies to Donald Trump.
The ex-president engaged in insurrection against the United States. The Constitution says he is not qualified for office as a result. That is the plain truth of the matter and a straightforward
These people false hope. Now, I've done a lot of videos recently explaining why it was that the left was way more black-pilled than the right, because they're starting to see that people don't like the policies that they voted for. By the way, a lot of these people who are living with these policies are people who voted for Joe Biden. They voted for this whole woke nonsense, thinking that if they gave these people a chance, the entire thing would just go away. But of course, it did not go away. It got a lot worse. Still, though, what happens when you blackpill your own voters? Now, the reason why I say blackpill your own voters is because after a while, even that side over there that eats up everything the mainstream media has to say, eventually, after a while, they find out that they've been getting lied to. So this right here eventually creates a form of apathy. So yes, while there is definitely, and I mean definitely, an awakening and definitely a lot of division in the country, we've also entered a stage to where we have a lot of apathy and we have a lot of people who are black-pilled. And by black-pilled, I mean the left. The left is definitely way more black-pilled than the right. And as I explained in a previous video, you can't really black-pill conservatives because conservatives, at least social conservatives, they typically tend to have a job, meaning that they don't have time to sit there and look at the mainstream media. We see the news, we react, we go home, we have a drink or two, we spend time with our family. Therefore, it's not as hard to blackpill us, whereas the left, on the other hand, they're in front of a computer screen all day or they're in a classroom constantly complaining about the situation that's going on in their lives because they're way more ideological. They also allow things to affect them a lot more. And of course, you've also got the old hens that stay home every day, not trying to make fun of grandma or anything, but I'm just simply saying the people who watch The View all day, after a while, they keep seeing this nonsense. You figure it would make them angrier and angrier and angrier to get out there and go vote against the evil orange man or whatever Republican they consider to be bad. But the truth be told is this right here. What the hell is really and truly going on is that they're actually creating more and more apathy. You see, when they lied about Trump's 14th Amendment case, they basically led their viewers astray. They guaranteed that Trump would not be on the ballot, that Trump could not be voted for. They basically were asking for the end of what they claim they love, democracy. Which, by the way, I have to say over and over again, this country's not a democracy, it's a democratic republic. But still, though, there is one more thing that yet remains. You see, a lot of these people claimed that they called the 14th Amendment decision right from the very start. And then, of course, they're saying it now if they got it wrong.
It will be up to the American voters to save our democracy in November.
Yes, it means we got to beat them at the ballot box, and that may motivate our base.
You can't save a people from themselves. If they're determined to reelect him after he organized that insurrection, arguably our first coup d'etat, then there's nothing to stop the people from doing that.
Larry's mad that nothing can stop Americans from voting. They're admitting they don't actually like the democracy that they say they need saving. Now, some TV lawyers pretend it was the right decision all along, and they knew it was going to be 9-0.
And I actually think it was the right decision to make, because it would have, if Colorado had been allowed to do that, we'd have this chaotic sort of process where you have 50 states and some are choosing to put him on the ballot and some are choosing not to put him on the ballot.
But this wasn't what Sonny Hostin said months ago about the Colorado case.
The point is the Constitution, and there is a Constitution, and there's precedent, and he needs to be taken out by the Constitution.
Now they're saying you have to physically go out there and go vote to put a stop to what's coming. So you're basically admitting that your plan was not to vote your way or vote to keep Joe Biden in office. You're basically saying that your plan was to use legal lawfare against the former president who's running again. That right there, to me, I think is the true division of the country. It's the establishment that is decided to use their power against the person who, quite frankly, was exposing them in every single corner. And of course, there's one side of the aisle that, of course, eats up the establishment state media narrative. And now, of course, these people are starting to get blackpilled. So it makes you wonder if something's about to happen. You see, when people get blackpilled, that right there is when they do crazy stuff. So it makes you wonder what's on the way. So yes, like I said before, there's definitely a lot of division. And yes, there's also a great big giant awakening. However, I think that awakening is occurring in rural America. And it's also occurring in portions of small town and suburban America, but not so much in big cities. We'll talk about degeneracy and stuff in another video, but I want to keep it, I want to stay away from that for the time being. I didn't want this video to get too long. Of course, it's obviously gotten a lot longer than I needed to get. But still at the same time, what do you think is going to happen over the next few months when the mainstream media, who, by the way, has been trotting out another narrative, ends up not coming true? This channel is about media criticism. This channel is about society. This channel here is also about calling it out. What I mean by is this right here. We'll take the Georgia case, for example. It's falling apart. Fannie Willis's case against Donald Trump is completely falling apart now that we know everything we know about her. Of course, that right there could still come back, but still at the same time, do you trust the mainstream media? Do you trust the media that's been telling you that this right here was going to happen, yet it hasn't happened? Do you continue to trust these people? You see, they're lying to you too, to the people that we call our friends on the left. They're lying to you as well. They're trying to whip you up because they know that statistically you tend to be a little bit more on the mentally ill side, a little bit more on the, I'm not going to go too far into it, but I'll definitely leave links in the description box. That's what they're doing. They're trying to blackmail you in the hopes that you do something stupid. That right there is what the hell they're really and truly doing to you. Stay away from the mainstream media. Cut it off. By the way, Trump's immunity case coming up. Well, if you watch this video here, then you would know that the Supreme Court basically said that the biggest reason why it was that they chose to just go ahead and give a 9-0 decision, unanimous, is they wanted the temperature in the country to kind of cool down. That's pretty much a signal that they're about to look at the former president of the United States, who right now has got his immunity case going before the Supreme Court, and they're going to say, you know what? You got to impeach this guy, which they did impeach him twice, but you've also got to convict this guy to lock him up, to put him in handcuffs. Second impeachment, they didn't get a guilty verdict. They didn't get a guilty verdict the first one, so technically there he was already acquitted of the insurrection crap that they keep on saying, because of course he's a threat to democracy. By the way, after a while, when you keep saying democracy over and over and over again, after a while people just get tired of it. Cut the damn media off, cut the damn television off, get outside and actually do something for a change. I've still got videos to make. I've still got a career here on YouTube, which hasn't taken off yet, but trust me, it will. And of course, I got other channels to create too. But the fact of the matter is this right here. I'm trying to spare you the blackpilling process is what I'm trying to do, which is actually hilarious given the fact that, you know. But still, the point is this right here. What's going to happen when these people realize that they've been lied to once again by the mainstream media, and that these people see that the former president of the United States, the orange guy, is still on the ballot? He can still run for president, and guess what? Probably ends up winning. Of course, he's only going to be there for 4 years, one term, but of course, they'll scream Orange Hitler. But still, though, that right there is what's going on. So in reality, what you've got going on is obviously a divided nation. Can't agree on something as simple as gender. But you've also got a great awakening going on, especially according to people who are saying, we're tired of this nonsense. We're going to go ahead and put the Cheeto guy back in office. But of course, you've still got a subsection of people that are, in fact, blackpilled. So no, you won't see a civil war in the United States. You won't see that. But what you may see is you may see a bunch of black-pilled individuals who are fighting over table scraps, who've got extreme levels of jealousy in very, very big blue cities, fighting amongst one another, not realizing that the bread and butter of this nation, their bread and butter, come from the red areas of the nation. And that, my friends, is what I have to say for this video. Please tell me what you think in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Let's make the channel bigger. And also something else too, please hit the notifications bell. YouTube has this habit of unsubscribing smaller YouTube channels, unsubscribing from smaller YouTube channels. And please share the video too. And I'll see you guys later.